Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are today. I hope you're all doing well today. If you have joined us before for one of our webinars, welcome back. And if this is the first time you've joined us, welcome. I don't like to waste anyone's time, so I'm just going to jump straight in with a very quick introduction of who the ICCP is and what we do before I hand over to Oliver for today's presentation. I will just ask if you have a question during the presentation, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. That's the one with the question mark, rather than the chat box. And that will just make sure that we're able to see your questions. All right, and with that, I'm going to jump straight in with a quick introduction. So the Institute of Construction Claims Practitioners is a professional members organization, and we recognize claims practitioners with skills, qualifications, and expertise in the professional management of claims. We have three primary objectives, and those are to establish international professional standards for the management of claims, give recognition to those who have gained the knowledge and experience necessary to manage claims, and also to educate those who wish to gain that experience. And why is there the need for the ICCP when there are so many construction organizations out there? Well, quite simply, construction claims have become a key part of the international construction industry, and practitioners come from a broad variety of backgrounds, including engineering, quantity surveying, project management, even legal, et cetera, and they deserve the recognition of the industry for the specialist knowledge, experience, and skills that they have acquired to manage, prepare, and respond to claims to the highest level of professionalism. Okay, I'm not going to take time to introduce our entire steering committee. I will just say that we have our executive officer, we have an elected president, and we have 5 elected fellows to sort of make sure that the views of the entire community are taken into consideration. Okay, we have 3 levels of individual membership for practitioners who have experience with claims. We also have 2 special levels of student and graduate membership for those who either are working for their first degree or have recently received their first qualification. And we have corporate membership for companies or departments within companies that specialize in construction claims. So if you have any questions about any of those levels, please let us know. And if you requested information when you registered, you will be getting that information by email. Okay, and what is in it for the members? We have a private members area of our website, which has a knowledge bank of articles, white papers, research, etc. We have a collection of resources pointing to higher education courses and training opportunities such as webinars and conferences. We also have a bookshop, which doesn't sell books, but it does have reviews and blurbs about the latest industry releases. We have a library of practical templates, which allows our members to save time and also ensure that their documentation is kept to a high standard. We have regular CPD webinars, such as this one. This particular webinar is free for the public to attend, but a CPD certificate is a benefit of membership. Okay, we also have the ICCP Academy, which are member-only sessions, which are a bit more technical in nature. And we have also discounts on books from Wiley Blackwell and Routledge, as well as our training partner, Claims Class. We keep our members up to date with a monthly newsletter, and we offer industry exposure in the form of a public listing of members, as well as certificate of membership and logo. We also have a private LinkedIn group where our members can discuss the issues and questions that they have in a confidential setting. And we have the optional benefit of the Register of Claims Practitioners. And this is a listing for our members who would like to have an increased online exposure of their skills, expertise, and also contact details. And, I realized that was a whirlwind view of the ICCP, but as I said, if you requested further information when you registered, you will be receiving that by email. If you have general inquiries, you can contact Paulina, who couldn't be here today, at paulina.ganova@instituteccp.com or membership@instituteccp.com. And with that, I'm going to hand over to our regional rep, Oliver O'Brien. All right, welcome, Oliver.
Thank you, Jennifer. Very good introduction there. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. This webinar will look at the domestic landscape and global opportunities in relation to Korea. My name is Oliver, and I'm the Institute of Construction Claims Practitioners regional representative for North Asia, which covers Korea and Japan. And today will be focused on the Korean market. Look, it's a pleasure to have you all here today. We're going to explore construction claims within South Korea's domestic market and also look at how Korean contractors are kind of dominating in the overseas market, in particular in the Middle East. Just for note, the webinar today is my kind of overarching personal view on the Korean construction market only, and is not in any way to be taken as advice. So Korea has one of the most competitive construction industries in the world, and it's led by major conglomerate companies that kind of dominate both the domestic and the global construction markets. The first part of today's webinar covers the Korean construction market, the contractual frameworks, and the key project stakeholders and their roles. The second part of today's webinar covers the role of Korean contractors in overseas projects, including the importance of collaboration in dispute resolution and managing risk. The third part of the webinar looks at the CEES structure for reviewing claims with practical examples, and I'll come into more detail in terms of what that means later. By the end of the session, I hope you have a better understanding of how claims are managed in Korea, the challenges faced in international projects, and one method of preparing and reviewing claims. So thank you for joining. So each region in Korea has a unique economic role. So as you can see, there's a map here of Korea with the two main regions, which is the capital region, which is in the northwest, and we have the southeast region. There is projects and an industry in between those two areas, but these are the two sort of main, economic hubs of Korea, with the capital region being focused on kind of offices, headquarters for global corporations, and the southeast being kind of the industrial heartland of Korea. So Seoul is the primary hub for business and commercial developments, attracting major corporations and financial institutions. The main industries in Seoul are finance, technology, and the corporate headquarters for both Korean and international companies. The major growth areas are Gangnam and Uido, so which are referred to in Korea as the GBD and the YBD. And we also have the CBD, which is the kind of traditional core of Seoul. In terms of investment trends, there's high demand for office towers, there's high occupancy, there's a demand for smart buildings and mixed-use developments for investors. Within the capital region, we also have Incheon, which plays a critical role in logistics and international trade, kind of driven by its port expansions and the Incheon Free Economic Zone. Key clients at Incheon, global logistics firms and Korean exporters, and investment trends in Incheon, big port expansion projects, industrial complexes, and obviously projects related to the airport. You can see the map okay now?
Yes, it's fine now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. So Gyeonggi Province, just next to Seoul, leads in the semiconductor manufacturing, data centers, and tech infrastructure. And it's fueled by investments from companies such as Samsung, SK Hynix, and sort of global cloud service providers that you're familiar with. Gyeonggi has main growth areas in Pyeongtaek, which is Samsung chip plant, and Pangyo, which is the equivalent of the Korea's Silicon Valley. Investment trends include tech parks, logistic hubs, and AI-driven infrastructure. Moving away from the capital region to the southeast region, Ulsan, which might not be that familiar to most people in this call if you live outside of Korea, continues to dominate in sort of shipbuilding, petrochemicals, and a kind of emerging hydrogen energy projects. There is also an emerging offshore wind market here with major energy companies entering the market, which is a kind of market growth market for the future. So Ulsan, if you have a look at the projects, you've got an S-Oil project, a refinery expansion, which is $6 billion US, Korea Zinc, which is approximately $1.3 billion battery and nickel production facility. And the real growth there is in kind of EV battery and industrial automation. And it's kind of the heartland of where kind of Hyundai make a lot of their cars for export around the world. More familiar to people in the southeast region is Busan. It's kind of a key maritime and logistic hub with an ongoing port redevelopment and smart logistic initiatives. Key clients will be global shipping lines. Big projects there include the port expansion and a new port in the north. And the last place to mention in the southeast is Pohang, which is home to POSCO, which is a large steel manufacturer and is also a general main contractor in the Korean market. So I hope that gives you a good overview and introduction to the kind of main regions in Korea, the type of industries, and the kind of the two main economic hubs. So moving on, in terms of the domestic construction market in Korea, the market in Korea is highly interconnected, with major clients often acting as their own contractors. Typically, the employer serves as the primary sponsor and ultimate owner of the project. As I said, key clients are also main contractors such as Lotte, Hyundai, Samsung, and SK, and they oversee commercial, residential, and industrial projects. These conglomerates, in addition to developing projects, manufacture cars, produce chemicals, and some have multiple large contracting arms. For example, Samsung make phones, they have a biologics arm, make cars, and it's a construction contracting arm in the domestic and international market under Samsung C&T, which is also has a leading architecture practice called SAMU. So as you can see, the market here is quite dominated by kind of large companies who have contracting arms. We also have government-led projects, in particular, KEPCO in the energy sector and the Incheon Airport Corporation for the aviation sector. As typical, employers often engage a general contractor to carry out the project. In most cases, a contractor will subcontract some portion of its works to subcontractors or suppliers. Tier 1 contractors include, as named before, Samsung C&T, Hyundai E&C, GS E&C, Daewoo, and POSCO, and they handle everything from infrastructure to high-rise developments. And as mentioned on the previous slide, POSCO, for example, are a contractor and one of the main steel manufacturing companies based out of Pohang. In the market, we also have, design and consultancy firms, including, SAMU as part of Samsung C&T, Hirim, and global firms such as Arup, AECOM, and Mott MacDonald, primarily on large infrastructure projects. We also have the presence of major international architects such as SOM, David Chipperfield, who kind of work in Korea on iconic projects, often in partnership with kind of local design firms. With the international designer usually focused on concept and schematic design stage, and a local partner on code compliance and taking it through to construction document stage and construction. Within Korea, employers also engage a construction supervisor that will serve only to oversee the construction works without actually carrying the work itself. Construction supervision is often done in-house, but there's also CM parts of architectural firms, and there's also specialist construction supervision firms that work in the market. In terms of claims consultants, the main global firms here are the Big Four, HKA, FTI, and you have a number of other claims consultant practices. Of particular note in Korea, subcontracting is a prevalent practice, and construction contracts commonly incorporate clauses related to subcontracting. The subcontractors in Korea have considerable strength, which means they have leverage in purchasing, and also in terms of contract negotiations with main contractors. To move now into the legal and contractual framework within Korea. Korea is a civil law jurisdiction. It's based on codified laws, and the principal laws governing the construction market in Korea are the Framework Act on the Construction Industry and the Framework Act on Building. These set the standards that parties in the construction industry, such as employers, contractors, architectural firms, adhere to so they can operate within the industry. The Housing Act regulates construction, supply, management, and transactions in the housing sector. The Fair Transactions in Subcontracting Act relates back to the point on the previous slide, protection of subcontractors. And the Civil Act outlines the general principles on contract and commercial transactions and includes sections that govern the relationship between the employer and the contractor. So in terms of the contractual framework, moving from the legal framework, in Korea, various standard forms of contracts are used for construction projects. Construction contracts involving the government are normally governed by the Act on Contracts, and a standard form of contract in accordance with the Act is commonly used. A set of standard terms is also available for local governments, as outlined in the enforcement rules of the Acts on Contracts. The MLIT, or the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, releases a standard form contract tailored to construction projects involving private sector parties. The Korea Fair Trade Commission also offers a standard form of contract for subcontracting with the construction industry. For larger projects, parties can have the flexibility to modify these standard form contracts or opt for amended versions of internationally recognized contracting forms, such as the FIDIC suite of contracts. For international clients, they use various types of contracts. Some international clients will just use the GC's own form of contract. The client may have their own specific form of contract they use globally, and they want to put that on the project in Korea, or they want to use the FIDIC form of contract. Collaborative contracting models are gaining attention for mega projects, which reflects the global trends in dispute avoidance and efficiency improvements. So moving on to delays. In Korea, parties typically follow a process outlined in the contract to address any delays in construction contracts. The contracts will usually specify the obligations of each party in the event of delays, such as notices, documenting the delay and taking the necessary actions to minimize the delay's effects. Time-related costs resulting from delays are often addressed in the contract through provisions for liquidated damages or extension of time. And then in terms of the remedies in the event of delays in Korea, construction contracts usually include liquidated delay damage provisions. And under Article of the Civil Act, the court may, in some instances, reduce the amount of liquidated damages agreed by the parties to a more reasonable and appropriate sum if it finds the amount is unduly excessive. Again, each of these will be on a case-by-case basis. So this is a general view of the market. Korean law also recognizes the parties' agreement as to penalties for failing to meet contractual obligations. These are generally distinguished from agreed liquidated damages in that they are intended to secure performance of the contract, as opposed to providing a pre-agreed estimate of compensation during the breach of a contract. So I hope that gave you a bit of a good insight into delays and disputes within Korea. And now we'll look at kind of what regular dispute resolution is and the alternative dispute resolution and arbitration. In South Korea, domestic construction and engineering disputes are sometimes resolved through court litigation. Some district courts and high courts have specialized divisions dedicated to handling construction and engineering disputes. In some instances, any issues are dealt with between the parties and don't necessitate external claims consultants or need for formal dispute resolutions in court. And that's quite common in Korea. Just before it gets to a dispute, these are dealt with amicably between the parties. Korean courts are known for efficiency in processing claims and disputes. With specialized court divisions structured, focusing on construction and engineering matters. Generally, a construction and engineering litigation case in its first instance may take around 16 months. More complex cases, can be upwards of 2 years. The timeframes and complexities of these, need to be considered in each case. In terms of alternative debt dispute resolution, laws in Korea can provide for alternative dispute resolution methods to address construction disputes. Article 69 of the Framework Act on the Construction Industry establishes the Construction Dispute Mediation Committee for resolving construction and engineering disputes through mediation. And arbitration is used as a method of dispute resolution. The Commercial Arbitration Board frequently handles a substantial amount of arbitrations in the year, and the Korean construction companies engaged in international projects use arbitration for resolving construction disputes and use sometimes for resolving disputes in cross-border construction projects, mainly due to its efficiency and effectiveness in providing a decision that can be neutral and can be enforceable. Again, that's on a case-by-case particular situation. So section 2 of this webinar looks at Korean contractors on overseas projects. And why that's quite important in today's presentation is because a lot of the dispute market revolves around Korean contractors having their head offices here and then supporting them on projects overseas. The Korean government and the private sector have formed One Team Korea, with particular focus on Saudi Arabia and Vision 2030, where orders for mega projects, actually giga projects such as NEOM, Diriyah Gate, Red Sea are currently in progress. One Team Korea is working with various industries, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, the Overseas Infrastructure and Urban Development Corporation, the major construction companies, including the large contractors we mentioned earlier, mobility companies, the large IT companies from Korea. They kind of come under this One Team umbrella to, target work overseas and kind of bring the, Korean excellence overseas. In terms of Korean contractors, they're among the largest global players in infrastructure, energy and industrial projects, particularly in the Middle East, Southeast Asia and Africa, and also expanding quite a lot into America in terms of chip manufacturing and also in Europe. Korean contractors are known for their engineering expertise, cost efficiency, and ability to handle large-scale projects. However, the same as all international contractors on international projects, you can face significant challenges working on these large-scale projects overseas. One of the biggest issues is contractual disputes, where delays and payment issues can arise, particularly in markets where cash flow constraints or legal barriers cause disputes between contractors and clients. And referring back to the acts, the Overseas Construction Promotion Act covers matters concerning Korean construction companies' overseas construction business. So collaboration is key We touched on giga projects, mega projects, very complex projects that need to be well coordinated and well managed. To successfully deliver these overseas projects, contractors can adopt a collaborative approach, emphasizing risk sharing, early dispute resolution, and transparent contract management. Implementing collaborative contracts, dispute avoidance mechanisms, and stronger claims management strategies, can improve project delivery, reduce risks, and strengthen relationships with international clients. Adapting to global best practices for maintaining competitiveness in the international construction market is key. The mega projects and the giga projects in KSA, Korean contractors are involved, necessitate unparalleled coordination of resources and skills. The complexity of such large projects, combined with the risk associated with them, such as supply chain issues, labor shortages, can result in delays, cost overruns, and potentially conflicts. So a proactive collaborative strategy is required to avoid hostile interactions and to ensure that you efficiently manage risks. These giga projects can aim to be more successful by aligning contractors with local businesses and embracing frameworks that encourage collaboration, assuring long-term progress. Particularly with these giga projects, they're long-term schemes. They're not just 1, 2, 3 years. They're going off into 2030 and beyond, and they kind of create a legacy for the countries they're in. That makes collaboration, enables all parties, including contractors, engineers, business consultants, strategic advisors, the local communities and ministries to work towards common goals while sharing responsibility for solving the complexity of these huge undertakings. The successful delivery of giga projects therefore depends on promoting cooperation rather than confrontation, especially considering the obstacles faced by the construction sector over the last decade. The use of dispute avoidance panels, DAPs, can help to identify risks early on, reducing delays and cost overruns, making an important tool for managing giga and mega projects. So next, we'll move on to the CEES framework for kind of preparing and evaluating claims. It's all about understanding how to properly prepare and present a construction claim is key. One methodology for structuring a claim is the CEES framework, with the aim to make claims clear, more well supported, and to have a contractual basis. So the first step in any claim is to identify the specific event that has led to the claim. This could be due to variations and design changes, unforeseen ground conditions, site access restrictions and delays, employer-caused delays, or disruptions due to third-party actions. Each of these causes are linked to the contractual provisions that govern such situations, and depending on the form of contract, they all have different clauses. I'm going to go through a few examples. Project names and specifics have been omitted due to confidentiality, and they may have been adapted to not be able to understand which project it is. Example 1, cause contamination in the ground, which caused a leakage of kind of gas into the work area when the piling works were ongoing, which in this instant falls under unforeseen ground conditions, as the geotechnical report provided by the client at tender stage showed no presence of contamination. And the contractor did his due diligence at tender stage and did further samples. The site was remediated. However, sheet piling was not considered, which allowed contamination from surrounding sites to penetrate the water table, re-enter the site between tender stage and the start of piling, which is approximately 6 to 7 months. So that's one example of the cause. The second one is more simple. The client changed the equipment type and supplier for the generator system due to end user requirements for high density power concentration. So next is E, effect. Once the cause is established, the effect of the event must be demonstrated. This means showing how the event impacted the contractor's ability to perform the works, whether through delays, additional costs, or lost productivity. For example, delays to critical activities, increased cost due to site conditions, and disruption to workflow due to site access limitations. It's key here just to demonstrate a clear causal link between the event and the impact. So in the example of the piling works, when there was it was found that there was kind of gas while they were piling, the work stopped immediately. A new ground survey had to be conducted. Once the results were analysed, a specialist report was produced in terms of the next step, which proposed a completely different piling rig setup, which had a reduced piling length, which had an impact of limited hours of working and required a full contamination unit with double crew shifts. And further to that, due to the shorter pile lengths, this led to a complete redesign of the foundations and the column systems within the building. And also there was delays due to the sourcing of this type of piling rig. Within kind of piling subcontractors, these kind of specialist rigs and deep bore rigs are not just kind of sitting around waiting for the next project. They're kind of booked 6 to 12 months in advance. So the contractor had to mitigate the impact. He demobilized staff where they could. The follow-on trades were impacted and had to be informed immediately. And obviously these works had to be rescheduled. As you can see, this caused significant cost to the project in terms of prolongation, not only a delay to the start of the piling, but also the reduced efficiency in terms of the number of piles per day. There was also abortive costs for the previous piling rig. There's the new rig piling cost. Now you're talking about a contaminated site with piler risings, sheet piles to contain the contamination, prelims. The cost is quite significant in an example like this. And you can just see how important piling is, such a critical trade on the critical path. Going back to the second example, where the change in equipment due to the end user requirement, the procurement of the generators was delayed by 1 month. This is a critical piece of equipment for power on, and it impacted project completion and also the commissioning schedule for the works. The impact was mitigated by 2 weeks through acceleration of the works with double shifts and 24-hour working to speed up the installation and follow-on works. This still resulted in 2 weeks delay to the project, the increased prolongation costs, the cost for acceleration. So you can see the link there between the cause and the effect. Next, we move on to entitlement, which is, after you've established a cause and effect, we need to establish contractual or legal entitlement. This can include the employer's failure to provide timely site access. In the first example is discovery of adverse subsurface conditions. I know between the different, standard forms of contract, they all have kind of different clauses and entitlements, and these will need to be reviewed in detail, particularly with a lawyer. Delays caused by employer actions, design or scope changes requiring compensation. In the first example, unforeseen ground conditions was, client risk in the contract, and the provisions allowed for cost and time to be claimed by the contractor, and the contractor had fulfilled the conditions under the contract for entitlement, including notices and putting in place mitigation measures. In the second example, this delay was a clear scope change to the contractor and was caused by a change in the end user requirements, and the clause of the contract gave rise to entitlement for time and cost. Moving on to substantiation, we've established a cause, effect, entitlement. A well-prepared claim, has to be supported by strong evidence. It's kind of, all well and good, you can say, we're entitled, this is what it costs, but if we haven't got the records to back it up, it's very hard for someone to make a correct assessment. So substantiation involves providing documentation such as relevant contract clauses supporting the entitlement, official correspondence and notices, delay notifications, early warnings, critical path analysis to show time impact, cost records, invoices, and financial reports that justify compensation, and daily site reports, meeting minutes, and witness statements. So in example one of the unforeseen ground conditions, it's pretty straightforward. We have the site photos, minutes of meetings where it was recorded that works were stopping, site reports, and independent companies coming to the project to test gas and survey the project. Those reports form good substantiation. Notices from the piling subcontractor and the contractor decline in accordance with the contract. In terms of cost records, timesheets, company bank statements, subcontracts, and also in terms of delay, the critical path analysis showing original contract baseline schedules to new program of works. In example two, substantiation is letter and email correspondence and meeting minutes where it's clearly noted that the equipment would be changed, a copy of the original PO and a new PO with different dates. So with records, they're very important to substantiate claims, and those contracting organizations that store project information in a structured way and labeled make life much easier for a claims consultant or someone who's preparing the claim. With all these points, it's important that any claim or response is easily understood and not too technical because it needs to be understood and followed by the end reader, who can be at any varying levels of construction industry from no knowledge to an expert. So, but you don't know who's going to read that claim, so you've got to kind of make it, as easy and user-friendly as possible. Also, the presentation is key to make the claim flow properly so it can be easily followed with a clear structure. The above examples are all examples and should not be used as a basis or merit for evaluating any claims you might come across in the future. So to recap, we have explored the legal and contractual framework governing Korean projects, the key stakeholders involved, and the challenges of time management in the industry. As we saw, Korea's construction market is highly structured and interconnected. The Korean subcontractors have considerable strength in Korea, which is a key consideration for clients and contractors. We have also examined claims and disputes in Korea and the role of Korean contractors in overseas markets. Korean contractors continue to expand overseas, leading major infrastructure, energy, and high-rise developments. Although cases do go to litigation and arbitration, there is strong relationship between large clients, developers, contractors, and claims are frequently settled pre-dispute. Where there are complex and large financial numbers at stake, there is more chance of it going to the kind of legal channels. One of the key takeaways from this session is kind of structured claim preparation. The CES framework, which is the cause, effect, entitlement, and substantiation, is one method. And from my experience, I've found that applying this method makes claims more clear, well documented, and kind of give it a more strong contractual basis, improving the likelihood of successful resolution. Additionally, as Korean contractors continue expanding into mega and giga projects worldwide, there is a growing need for collaborative contract models and early dispute avoidance strategies. Adopting best practices in construction administration, risk management, and claims resolution, will help mitigate disputes and enhance project success. I encourage you to, review what we've discussed today. I know if you've got any further discussions, be happy to take any questions at the end today. And please feel free to reach out. Thank you for your time today and participation. And I hope you kind of enjoyed what we discussed today and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, that was a great overview of the Korean market and the situation over there, but also just some good general best practices, regardless of where people are in the world or who they are working for and with. We have a question for you. Singapore government is introducing the NEC4 form of contract. Is the Korean government thinking of introducing it? So, Oliver, are you aware of any Korean push to move to the NEC4 form of contract?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can have a look into it for you, Emma, and I can kind of come back to you on that. Most of the contracts that we deal with here, kind of on the international, is work mostly with international clients, so it's kind of the FIDIC form of contracts. But it's something that I can kind of definitely look into for you.
All right, thank you very much. And no other questions. So I wonder if you've given such a thorough overview that no one has any questions for you. All right, well, should I give you a countdown, dear viewers? Would you like to hurry up and put any questions in? If not, I will go ahead and call it a day. I unfortunately did not look up the specific date. I do know that next month's session is a member-only ICCP Academy. So for members, you will be getting those registration details in your inbox. And for non-members, we will have our next public session in April. And yeah, no other questions have come in. So Oliver, I would like to thank you very much for this quite insightful presentation, and for everyone who joined us. Thank you all for attending, and I hope you all have a great day. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
All right, bye.
Bye.